What's going on, guys? Bourbon N Ball, week 19 moving along. We got some must-start hitters, must-start pitchers, some tough matchups for both, and some really good streamers and some really good IL updates for your playoffs. So you're not going to want to miss this one. Right, guys, you heard it here. Week 19, Bourbon N Ball. I'm Doug, along with my lifelong friend over there, Mikey V from Clearwater, Florida. We're talking week 19. We're talking pitchers, matchups, hitting matchups, some streamers, some ILs, some updates for a lot of these higher drafted players that hopefully will be back in time for playoffs, as fantasy playoffs are coming up right around the corner for some leagues. I think maybe 3 weeks away for some. Some of the bigger ones start a little earlier. But with that said, let's just hop right into must-start pitchers for the week. Again, you'll start your studs, but some of these matchups I like a little more than I like the others. So I'll run down the top 5 I have, and then there's no rhyme or reason or order for this. They're all just there. And then Mike, you can come in and lay down that expertise that you so lovely lay down, my friend.
Man, we're just throwing that word expertise out there, huh? Jeez.
So first and foremost, you do have Boston starting pitcher Sonny Gray, Monday versus Toronto at home, and then Saturday at Pittsburgh. 14-2 on the year, 119 innings pitched, 106 strikeouts, 2.70 ERA. He's giving you 15.5 a start. His last 2-0, 13 innings, 13 strikeouts, 4 earned, 4 walked, 40.24 points. He is going to be of those 2 starts, one was at the A's, and then the other one was home versus the White Sox. I think that momentum does carry over. I know he had that kind of blip in a few starts ago versus Toronto where he did give up a lot of runs, but I feel that was more of a one-off. These are both favorable matchups. I think he should be able to go out there and get at least a quality start and hopefully win in both. Next up, I have Astros starting pitcher Hunter Brown Wednesday at the Giants in San Francisco. 3-1 on the year for him. Of course, he was back from the IL just a few months ago. 58 2/3 innings pitched, 63 strikeouts. Those strikeouts are there. 3.5 ERA. He's only giving you 10.7 to start, but I mean, that's expected from coming back and missing so much time. Last 2 starts, 1-0. So he did get a no decision. 11 2/3, 13 strikeouts, 5 earned, 4 walks at 28.6 points. His first start was at home versus the Rangers. Then he was at home versus Toronto. Like I said, been a little up and down since coming back. But the Giants were sellers, and I think they lost one of their biggest offensive weapons in Luis Arias. So I think Brown should kind of dominate this start, especially it's a pitcher's ballpark over there in San Francisco. Then we got Yankees starting pitcher Max Fried Thursday versus Seattle. I mean, all you got to say is Seattle. 4-3. 81 1/3 innings, 75 strikeouts, a 2.80 ERA, 25 walks, was a little higher for him. Giving you 10.6 a start. Last 2 starts, both no decisions, 11 2/3, 14 strikeouts, 1 earned, 3 walks, 23.6 points. First start was at Chicago against the Cubs, then versus the Braves at home. Fried has not won a game since coming back from the IL in late July. How is that, man? 4 starts, 19 1/3 innings, 25 strikeouts, 4 earned, 6 walks. I think that has to do more with the offense than him. I mean, he's looked great, and he kind of looks to be fully stretched out. He went 6 1/3 in his last start versus the Braves. I think the strikeouts should continue with this horrible offense Seattle has put together. The only thing is the runs. You hope he gets them. The Yankees are really struggling to score some runs. Next up, Red Sox starting pitcher Peyton Tolle. I had him on here before that breakout start he pitched Friday night, But Wednesday, he is going to be at Toronto, 7-6, 107 innings pitched, 124 strikeouts, 3.2 ERA, 12 a start. I mean, what could you ask for? 1-0. So he did get a no decision, 12 innings pitched, 21 strikeouts, 3 earned, 2 walks, 43.76 points. His first start, and he was in LA against the Dodgers. Then home versus the A's. You could make the case Tolle should have had a few more wins. I mean, that Dodgers start, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 2 earned, gets a no decision. That's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But he's locked in right now. should be able to dominate a Blue Jays lineup that is struggling a little bit to score some runs. But, I mean, their pitching has kept them in. They have actually had a pretty good week. As far as the team goes for the Blue Jays, I still think he'll come in and he should be able to pull out the W in this one. And then last but not least, Tigers starting pitcher Framber Valdez Wednesday versus the Guardians at home. 7-7, 127 innings pitched, 103 strikeouts, a 4.17 ERA, 45 walks, 8.7 to start. But last two starts, 2-0, 14 innings pitched, 11 strikeouts, 2 earned, 4 walks, 45.72 points. His first start was at the A's, then it was at Seattle. His last handful of starts, I mean, haven't looked that bad. I think maybe Framber finally has turned the corner. Took him much longer than I thought, but I'm hoping he did. Of course, the moment you say that, he does go out and he gets crushed. But I do like this matchup for him at home, and I want to say this matchup is a step better. It's like every matchup, the offense has gotten a little better, right? You're at Sacramento against the A's. Of course, they don't have Kurtz. Of course, they don't have Shea Langoliers. He goes out and he gets the win. Then you go a little step up. I think Seattle's offense is a little better than the A's. He goes out and he dominates them. Now you're going up against the Guardians. They're a little better. Let's see how he does against them. So take it step by step with him, but I do like the direction he's headed, and I am going to start him this week for sure against the Guardians.
Yeah, it's a great start against the Guardians. I mean, the Tigers right now, 7-3 the last 10 games, playing really good baseball. Playing, against San Francisco, but still, they're still winning baseball games. I'll tell you what, Max Clark, he's definitely going to be a thing down the road. But anyway, just going back to Framber Valdez. Like you said, he's pitching well as late. And I don't think it's so much about him. I think it's so much about the team right now. I think they're scoring enough runs. And if Framber can just be just a little bit back to his own form, he's going to be just fine moving forward. But like you said, it took him a little bit, and I think we started to doubt him a little bit. I know I definitely did at one point. And but hey, results are results, right? He's pitching well. Roll him out there. Guardians, not a very good offensive team. So, and what do they say? 3.5 games, I think, behind first place in the AL Central. Tigers are still in it, Doug. Unbelievable. But going back to the top of the list here, we started off with Sonny Gray. And look, he's a top 5 Cy Young candidate to this point. Red Sox obviously been on this insane tear. And even before that blip, like you talked about, 9 consecutive starts with quality starts right before that blip. Then he's got 2 more quality starts behind it. I think that was just a little dirt in the road. He just hit a little rock and then just fell over, but he got back up. Looking good, top 5 candidate. Put him out there. I think he's arguably the best 2-starter this coming week. Hunter Brown. Starting to like to see what we're seeing again, all the way back to form. Maybe not. But the strikeouts are there. He's not giving up as many runs when he first came back. And now again, Houston, they're also 7-3 in their last 10 games. He's got a game against San Francisco. That's just a good formula, I think, altogether. A good baseball team with a good pitcher that's really getting his feet under himself again. So Hunter Brown, put him in your lineups. Don't be shy about it. And I doubled down with that with Max Fried too. Man, I think Max Fried, like you said, I think you touched on it. I think the reins are going to get loose with him. I think he's finally 100%. I think they were kind of cautious with him before. He looked great against Atlanta, obviously. And then if you go back that start beforehand, it was against the Cubs. He went 5 1/3, but he only threw 78 pitches. So I feel like now with the Red Sox kind of closing in, we are almost in the middle of August here. We only got about 6 weeks left of regular season baseball. I do think the Yankees are not going to be shy just about letting him go 90, 100 pitches, just like he usually would anyway. So, again, I think that's a really good matchup for him moving forward with against Seattle. I mean, Seattle, let's just talk about them for a second offensively. Worst offense in the AL when it comes to runs. They only have 461. That's about 10 runs behind the next lowest person. So, again, Seattle offense, it's just not been very good this year to this point. Peyton Tolle, like what's up with that? 14 strikeouts. We were doing the live stream. We were talking about it. Unbelievable outing. Great to see. And this is why I think they kept him at the deadline over like a Connor early, because I think they see a lot more potential in him. Obviously, he's got the flair on the mound, but man, his stuff is just as good as his flair. So again, another great matchup for Peyton Tolle. I'm rolling him out there. I'm cool with that. I mean, you can't not put out Red Sox pitchers, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah, I think my only hesitation is going to be Toronto is rolling, and you if they carry over that momentum to this week, um, who knows? I mean, Vlad hit a home run the other day, so things could happen. But Red Sox are at home, so I do like that.
Yeah, and that was only Vlad's 7th home run of the season. And we're going to touch on Toronto, I know, but man, it's just lackluster offense this year. Really just couldn't put it together as a whole. They're actually on the bottom side of the AL when it comes to run differentials as well. They're not doing too hot.
Right. So let's talk about some tougher matchups for some pretty good pitchers. There's the list right there. And man, let me just start out with my boy Logan Gilbert here. Mariners starting pitcher Thursday at New York against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. On the year, 8-7, 139 innings pitched, 145 strikeouts, a 3.4 ERA, 32 walks, 11.3 a start. His last 2 starts, 0-1, so he did get a no decision, 13 2/3 innings, 12 strikeouts, 5 earned, 5 walks, 18.56 points. His first start was versus the Twins. That's where he got the loss. Then he got that's where he got the no decision. He got the loss with the Rays right after that. They were both at-home starts. Listen, I mean, he hasn't looked bad his last 4 starts, hasn't given up more than 3 earned in 3 of the 4, and there were 3 of those starts were quality starts. I think his offense just cannot score runs. So for him to get a win, he has to be perfect. And that just isn't in the cards for him this year. He pitches slightly better at home. So I think being in New York, that Yankees offense might be able to score a few runs off him, and that will be enough to get the win. I mean, come on. Gilbert went 6 2/3, 6 strikeouts, and just 2 earned versus the Rays. Got no run support, got the loss. I mean, that's a fantasy crime. You could make the case this guy should be 4-0 in his last 4 starts, but he's not. He does give up a decent amount of home runs, 4 home runs in his last 2 games. So that does give me, again, some hesitation to start him against the Yankees. I will say, I mean, is it time maybe we reevaluate where this guy should be drafted? Is he more of this, second-tier pitcher than that first tier he was drafted at? I'm actually kind of leaning toward that. I put him in a bracket. It's like a poor man's Yamamoto at this point. And we said in our live podcast, Yamamoto's like a 1B. So Logan Gilbert's your 1C, I guess. But I do steer clear of this. The Yankees, I mean, Seattle is just, I don't know. Something has to give with them. I think they'll be the odd man out in the playoffs for sure. Then you got Blue Jays starting pitcher Dylan Cease Wednesday versus Boston. 7-5, 126 innings, 184 strikeouts, a 2.28 ERA, 52 walks. That's a lot. 15.6 a start. 2 no decisions his last 2 starts, 13 innings, 17 strikeouts, just 1 earned, 4 walks, 32 points. This is his first start home versus the Cardinals. Then he was at Chicago against the Cubs. His last 6 starts have been incredible. 4 of them, he has given up 0 earned, 1 earned in one, and then 3 earned in the other, going just 3-1. He's got a few things going against him. The walks, the fact that his offense can't score runs. Just look at his last 2 starts, getting no decisions. I think the Red Sox kind of grind on him. I think he's going to be going up against Tolle. It's going to be a tough matchup for him for sure. Even as good as he is, offenses still need to score runs for a win. And we've seen it with Logan Gilbert, and you see it with Dylan Cease. Next up, you got Mariners starting pitcher Brian Wu. He's Tuesday at Yankee Stadium against the Yankees. 8-8 on the year, 127 innings, 127 strikeouts, a 4.3 ERA, 10.3 a start he's given you. Last start versus the Tigers at home. Again, he pitches great at home. 1-0, 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, no earned, just a walk, 23.36 points. Again, I know he looks great. His home and away numbers are a different story. He has not won an away start since May when he beat Houston. Since then, 0-6 in his last 7. I think that trend continues against the Yankees at New York. White Sox starting pitcher Davis Martin. Saturday, he's going to be pitching in Comerica Park in Detroit against the Tigers. 9-6, 122 innings pitched, 107 strikeouts, a 4.1 ERA, 37 walks, giving you an even 10 a start. His last start at Boston, 0-1, got the loss, 5 innings, 1 strikeout, 9 earned, 2 walks, negative 10.6 points. I think it's safe to say he has finally hit that wall. He's going 0-4 in his last 9 starts with just 1 quality start. reaching 6 innings only twice, 0-3 in his last 5. He given up 23 earned in 25 innings, just 17 strikeouts. This is a guy you probably just keep on your bench. Hopefully he turns it around. I mean, I don't know what to expect from him, to be honest with you. And then last but not least, Blue Jays starting pitcher Jose Soriano. He's playing against Boston Thursday, 9-6 on the year, 127 innings, 130 strikeouts, a 3.3 ERA, 10.6 a start. His last start at Philly wasn't bad. I mean, he only went 4 2/3, so he didn't even qualify for the win, but only gave up 1 earned, had 3 walks and 3 strikeouts, gave you 4 points. Pretty good debut for him, especially for his first start against Philly in Philly, against Wheeler, of all people. You wish you could have at least gone 5 to get that W. I think the issue with him is walks. 33 walks in his last 12 starts, going 3-3. I think those walks do come back to haunt him against this red Sox offense. If he does walk 3 or more, I would stay clear of him just because of the walks, especially against Boston.
Soriano, I mean, man, you've been seeing this all year with him. All year, it's just kind of been up and down. The walks are there. Even the change of scenery, we're still kind of seeing the same things in that first start as we saw in Toronto. So again, kind of a rough start. And the theme is with this list, is run support, right? We're talking about Seattle. We're talking about the Blue Jays. We're talking about the White Sox. We're talking about teams that just aren't as good as we expected from an offensive perspective. Going back to Logan Gilbert, nothing wrong with how he's been pitching this year. Pretty good. Maybe the expectation going into the season was a little higher. Maybe really his value was really was in 2024, right? Going into those kind of seasons, it was more the George Kirby show than the Logan Gilbert show. But then all of a sudden it kind of flipped because of injuries and this and that. But again, just tough matchups. I believe he's going up against Max Fried as well. And again, I'm on a Max Fried train right now, so I'm kind of against Seattle offense as a whole, playing against the Yankees, even though they haven't been playing as good. Dylan Cease, again, like you said, it's a grind game. What the Red Sox do, they're pesky, they're scrappy, you name it. They don't give up. Similar to Gilbert, it's not that they're bad pitchers. It's just, and they're not going to get wrecked either. They're just difficult matchups, compared to what they're used to. Same thing with Brandon Wu. Brandon Wu, I think it's a little bit of a wear and tear thing. Last year, he had a very, very good year, pitched his most innings that he's ever pitched. And I think it's catching up with them. And I think you can see that with his ERA. It's over 4. So that's not very good for him. That's been a pretty inconsistent year for him. And then really with Davis Martin too, Doug, if you go back into his numbers, and it might sound a little drastic, but if you go back to his numbers, he hasn't had a quality start since the middle of June. It was June 21st. And then ever since then, you know how many total points he's given you for your fantasy teams? -3.5, all the way up to this point. You say bench him. I think I'm in the boat of dropping him. That's fair. At this point, with the White Sox offense, the way it's going, it's just not that electric team that we saw back in April and May and even the beginning of June. So, and Davis Martin, he's given up a ton of clunkers lately. So, again, if you have other options, definitely go in a different direction from a Davis Martin right now.
Awesome. So you talking pitching. Now let's talk some hitting. Let's look at some matchups. Listen, you're going to start your studs. We all know that. We always say that. However, these are some players you might want to stream. You have some guys hit the IL. You're looking to pick somebody up to fill a roster spot. This week, some of these teams, I think, are playing some really good matchups that should boost some of those numbers, power numbers, hitting, RBIs, runs. I mean, the Braves, they have 3 games at home versus the Mets, 3 games at home versus Arizona, 8-2 in their last 10, winning 8 in a row. They'll face Kristen Scott, Nolan McLean, Zach Thornton from the Braves, from the Mets, and then Brandon Pfaadt, Erod, Michael Soroka from the D-backs. I mean, to me, those are pretty easy matchups. Maybe like Nolan McLean might give him a little tougher time, maybe Erod, but other than that, I mean, I'm rolling them out. I'm rolling the Braves out for sure. The Cubs, 3 games at Washington, 3 games at home versus the Cardinals. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They swept the Dodgers. They'll face Jake Irvin, Miles Mikolas, who I don't understand how he still has a rotation spot. Gabe Cavelli, he's probably the best pitcher they'll see from the Nationals. And then Matthew Liberatore, Hunter Dobbins, Michael McGreevy from the Cardinals. Then you get the Phillies, 3 games at the Cardinals in St. Louis, 3 games against the Twins at Minnesota, 5-5 in their last 10. They've won the series against the Orioles and the Nationals, but they're on the verge of being swept by the Blue Jays because the Blue Jays have, for some apparent reason, turned the switch on, which is good for them. But the Phillies offense, they're averaging 5 runs during those 10 games of being 5-5. So that tells me that it is more on pitching, not on them. I mean, averaging 5 runs in 10 games, that's pretty good. They're going to face Hunter Dobbins, Andrew Palente. Kyle Lee is probably, to me, one of the better underrated Cardinals pitchers. So that might be one of the better matchups they'll see this week. And then Connor Prelip, Dean Kramer, and Taj Bradley from the Twins. Taj Bradley is having a pretty decent year too, so that might be a little tougher for them. But other than that, I don't see any issues. The Chicago White Sox, they had 3 games at home versus the Reds, 3 games at Detroit, 5-5 in their last 10. They did win the series against the Rays. They split a series against the Yankees. But again, the offense is clicking. 44 total runs in 10 games, 4.4. That's pretty good, right? And Hunter Green's out. They're not going to see him. They'll see Nick Lodolo making his first start off the IL, so you don't know what's going to expect for that. They're going to see Rhett Lauder, Andrew Abbott from the Reds. And then on the other side of things, you'll see Jackson Joby, Troy Melton, who is going to be their toughest matchup, I think, of the week, and then Drew Anderson from the Tigers. And then last but not least, the Texas Rangers. 4 games at Los Angeles against the Angels, 3 games at the A's, 4-6 in their last 10. I know they lost 6 in a row, but now they've won 4 in a row. And I think these matchups will probably help stretch that win streak just a little more. They'll see Ryan Johnson, George Klassen, and Walbert Urena from the Angels. And I think Urena's having a really nice year, a very surprising year. He's probably going to be the best pitcher they see all week. And then from the A's side of things, you get Gage Jump, JT Ginn, and Jacob Lopez.
Yeah, good matchups for Texas there. Really kind of no household names, right? That you just mentioned there. Even though Uriba's having a pretty good year, but really they should have some favorable matchups. Again, they're competing still in that AL West pretty hardcore. So again, they like to take advantage of this weak lineup. Going back to the top, Atlanta Braves, right? Really kind of just doing Brave things again. Dubon having a great week last week. Matt Olson continuing his success. You got Acuna, having a pretty good week as well. So kind of all cylinders there in Atlanta. Again, against the Mets, not really good pitching. Arizona, mediocre pretty much for the par. So again, I'm comfortable with starting all those guys that I just mentioned, including Albies. Even Austin Riley had a little bit of a power surge this week. Yeah. So again, if you're comfortable with, kind of a risky play, I always say Austin Riley's a risky play because of those strikeout numbers, as we always talk about. But again, if he's hot, he's hot. Sometimes you just got to put the hot guys in your lineup. Same thing with the Cubs. PCA, probably MVP to this point. I have to say it. I hate to say it, but I have to say it. But, you got other guys in that lineup, too, though, that are also producing. Bregman maybe turning a little bit of a corner. Michael Busch having really a down season compared to last year. He had a pretty good week last week as well. Dansby Swanson really having a career year for the most point. So, again, I love the matchup against the Nationals. You mentioned those guys. Mikolas, are you kidding me? I can't believe he's still in the league. It's incredible. But still, those national games, though, Doug, those are slugfest. I feel like every time I watch the Nationals game, both teams are crushing the ball. So, again, they got 3 in Washington, and I like the favorable matchups that he has against St. Louis later in the week. Just really favorable matchups. Philadelphia Phillies, right? Ever since the Phillies traded for Luis Arias excuse me? Oh, sorry. My bad. Yeah. Ever since the Phillies traded for Luis Arias, the lineups look completely different. It's not just him hitting 300 plus, setting the table. The entire lineup suddenly looks more dangerous. Bryson Scott putting together one of the best stretches of the season. Justin Crawford is finally starting to look comfortable at the plate. And then you got your veterans like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, both having great weeks. That's what superstars do. All of a sudden, the Phillies have quality at-bats at the top of the lineup and really at the bottom of the lineup as well. Arias doesn't strike out consistently, puts the ball in play, forces pitchers to pitch, work the very first hitter, Is it a coincidence? Maybe. But Philly looks like the hottest offense in baseball right now. Like you just mentioned, Doug, they're scoring 5 runs per game, even in the 5-5. That's because Wheeler's not producing. That's because Nola's still going out there throwing some clunkers. So again, Philly offense, it looks like they're back. And man, against St. Louis, against the Twins, loving those matchups. And then the White Sox, yeah, favorable matchups. We're going to talk about Meidroth later in the show, but those kind of guys you might want to put out there. Murakami and Vargas, I feel like are both due. I feel like they kind of been low key lately, but I just think these lineups, these matchups have a potential opportunity for both of those guys. And then we already said Texas, great lineups. So very interesting.
Yeah. So we go from some must starts to some tougher matchups for some of these guys, some of these lineups. And I know some of these teams, you'll be like, well, why would you put these on a list like this? There is some rhyme and reason. And I mean, for one, Milwaukee Brewers, right? I mean, they got 3 games at the Padres and San Diego, 4 games at LA versus the Dodgers, 6-4 in their last 10. They did lose a series to the Giants, which is kind of weird because the Giants aren't really amazing. And depending on today's outcome, they could lose a series against the Twins. This week, I think, is going to be one of those weeks where a lot of these teams are going to be put to the test, where you're going to see some really good pitchers, some really good lineups. And for me, I think this Milwaukee Brewers team is going to be one of them. Like, Casey Mize, Robbie Ray, Walker Buehler from the Padres, Sasaki, Yamamoto, Justin Robolowski, and Skubal from the Dodgers. Those are some really tough matchups. Toronto, listen, 4 games versus Boston, 3 games versus the Yankees, 7-3 in their last 10. Like we said, they did win series against the Nationals, Cardinals, Astros, and now Philly. But again, this is a make or break week for these guys in the AL East playing against the same teams in that division. They're going to see Sonny Gray, Patrick Sandoval, Ranger Suarez, Peyton Tolle from the Sox, Garrett Cole, Cam Schlittler, Ryan Weathers from the Yankees. I mean, on paper, you would say, wow, they'd be lucky if they can get 2 or 3 wins. But who knows? They're hot right now. They could be going in and they might win a couple series. They might win a series for each one or do a split in a series. I don't know. It's always weird when you have those divisional games. It's anything goes almost. And then we talked about the Cardinals, 3 games versus the Phillies at home, 3 games at Chicago versus the Cubs, 5-5 in their last 10. They did win the series against the Yankees, but have series losses to the Blue Jays, to the Cubs, and if they lose today, to the Rockies, of all people. They'll see Andrew Painter's day-to-day. He's scheduled to see him on Monday. I don't know if he's going to go out there, but for now, let's just stick with Painter in there. Then they got Christopher Sanchez. Then they got Zach Wheeler from the Phillies. Then you go to the Cubs. Kevin Gausman, Clay Holmes, Matt Boyd, who's having a pretty sneaky good fantasy season and year for them. So really tough matchups. Then we've talked about that struggling Seattle Mariners team. 3 games at New York against the Yankees, 3 games at Houston versus the Astros, 3-7 in their last 10. They did win the series against the Twins, but then lost the series to the Rangers, to the Dodgers, to the Tigers, and now the Rays. They're only averaging 2.5 runs over those 10 games. They'll see Ryan Weathers, Will Warren, Max Fried from the Yankees, Peter Lambert, Christian Javier, and then Hayden oh man, I'm going to butcher this name. I know I am. Wenzensky from the Astros. We're going to go with that for now, but he's had a pretty good couple starts so far in his young career. And then last but not least, the Rockies. They are not playing at home, and when they're not playing at home, I don't think they're as dangerous as they could be. 3 games at Arizona, 3 games against the Giants in San Francisco, 4-6 in their last 10. They did sweep the Royals, but then they lose a series to the Brewers, the Padres, the Rays, and now that they are playing the Cardinals, that might be another series that they could lose to, depending on today's outcome. It all depends who wins today. But they'll see Michael Sorka, Mitch Bratt, Merrill Kelly's day-to-day from the D-backs. Then you got Landon Roop, Logan Webb. And as of now, they have no one scheduled for that last Sunday game. But again, they're not in Colorado. So there's my hesitation for putting them as maybe like you're going from a must-start to a tough lineup type.
Yeah, that team is built for Coors Field, I feel. That team, like with Jake McCarthy, Mickey Monick, like it's just like they got power in that lineup for sure. But then, like you said, once they go away from that, of Coors Field, it kind of turns into a little bit of a different team, and they just don't produce offensively as better. But again, I'm probably hesitant a little bit on probably starting any of those guys I even just mentioned anyway. There's probably better matchups out there for sure. Going back to the top, Milwaukee Brewers, right? Kind of a on and off week for them. Like you said, kind of losing series against teams that they probably shouldn't be losing to. But, I'm probably still rolling with Jackson Chariot, who had a pretty decent week still. You're still going to start your Bryce Terangs, right? Jake Bowers, obviously just coming back from his injury from being day-to-day, has looked a little shaky since coming back to this point. So I'd steer away from him for a little bit until he starts finding it again. But other than those guys I just mentioned, you're probably going to bench the rest of them. Going to Toronto, what a headache Toronto is offensively. We already touched on it already. Vlad only having 7 home runs. Really, no one's turning that lineup around. So again, tough matchups, even at home. Boston, New York, both teams competing in that AL East. It's getting really tight. They're going to have to win baseball games, and all those pitchers are really tough pitchers to play against, I feel, for both those squads. St. Louis, only Alec Burleson's really kind of been the guy lately. You can argue Ivan Herrera, who hit a home run this weekend. JJ's been pretty good for them, JJ Withall. But I think the biggest disappointment second half has to be Jordan Walker. Obviously, the power's gone. The strikeouts are creeping up a little bit. Just hasn't been that same guy since we saw in the first half. So, again, am I going to tell you to bench Jordan Walker? I think I'm going to this week. It's kind of shocking. He led you, obviously, to this point in the season. But if he's not producing like he has been, man, he can really hurt your baseball team. We talk about those guys that have that high strikeout rate that can actually kill you if they don't keep producing offensively when it comes to power, RBIs, and even stolen bases like Jordan Walker had. So again, right now, I'm not seeing really any of that from him. So I'm probably steering clear away from him this coming week against the Phillies and against the Cubs. Just 2 tough matchups for St. Louis this week. And then Seattle, again, I'm steering clear away pretty much from all Seattle bats. I think I'm almost completely out on this whole Seattle team, Doug. It's just because it's not, individually based, but as a whole, a collective whole, they don't score enough runs. They don't give pitchers enough run support. And then obviously from a fantasy perspective, offensively, you're not getting production out of the guys that you thought you were. J-Rod, obviously, I think the cat's out of the bag with him. I don't think he's this elite fantasy player that people thought he was. He's a very good baseball player, but he's just not going to give you the points that you need to win week in and week out, or just even be a number 1 outfielder for that matter. Yes, Josh Naylor had a great week, right? He had 2 home runs last night, but they still lost 3-2. So it's just, it's hard to trust these guys day in, day out, especially in weekly leagues when you plug and play. And you just don't know what you're going to get. So, again, I'm probably steering clear away from a lot of these Seattle bats moving forward. It's such a headache, Doug, with Seattle. We like Seattle, too. We root for them.
Yeah. I think the only bat that I would probably like is Josh Naylor. The strikeouts aren't as bad. But everybody else, to me, is that they're like a mirror of each other. J-Rod, Randy Rosarina, they're almost the same exact player where they're going to give you tons of strikeouts. That's just how I feel like that team doesn't need that many of those type of players. They need more of like a Josh Naylor type. So I think that's a reason. I think they're going to address a lot of that in the offseason, though. They still have young pitching. They've still got a couple years to hold this group together. So to make the best of it, I think they might trade maybe a pitcher away. And they do have Cade Anderson, and he'll be up at some point, maybe at the end of the year. If all goes south, why not just have him up, go to a 6-man rotation, and at least let him get a couple handfuls of starts under his belt before letting him out next year.
Yeah, I think in keeper dynasty leagues, if you don't already have him rostered, which he should be rostered anyway, this is a guy that you probably should pick up now just because you mentioned his name, because it sounds like he's pretty close. It sounds like he's really close. But Josh Naylor, even going into yesterday's game, he has a sub 700 OPS, which, again, very subpar, and especially for a guy that is a contact hitter in Josh Naylor who doesn't strike out often. So it's just, I think, the productivity on both sides. Maybe he's turning a little bit of a corner, but again, probably other than him, I'm not starting anyone.
What the thing about Josh Naylor is, what I found is he is not supposed to be the guy in the lineup. He is not the star. And in Seattle, he is, because there's nobody else. And that's the issue. When you go back to like his Arizona, when he was with Arizona and they were playing, they were rolling last year, they had a Corbin Carroll, they had a Marte, like those were the guys. And then he goes to Seattle, and yeah, he puts up a great year. But who was the guy last year for that Seattle team? Cal Riley. Now, Riley's not hitting home runs. He's not producing. Nobody else is really. And so Naylor's the guy who's stuck being the de facto head of the offense. And he's just not that guy. And I think having no protection in that lineup and that exposure is just hurting him production-wise, in my opinion. That's how I look at it.
1,000%. No, I think you're right on with that. It's inconsistent, is what it is. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right, so we talk about that. Let's talk about some IL additions recently, and then we'll talk some streamers, hitters and pitchers. Not a big list I have. Reds starting pitcher Hunter Green, he has that partial UCL tear in his right elbow. He's going to undergo surgery. He's out for the rest of the year, most of probably 2027. He is droppable. You have Twins starting pitcher Joe Ryan. He's on the 15-day IL. He's got that left glute strain. The team's thinking it should only take him the minimum. That'll put him back late August. And then really last but not least, outfielder for the Nationals and DH, James Wood. He's on the 10-day IL with that oblique strain. They're hoping this will take the minimum, but oblique injuries tend to linger, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's back more toward late August. But other than that, there weren't any really big IL additions, which is nice to see, especially in fantasy.
Yeah, I think with the James Wood news, I think if you're a fantasy owner of James Wood and you're in a pretty good spot to make the playoffs, I think you're just hoping for the Nationals just to make sure that he's healthy down the stretch for yourself, especially for fantasy playoffs. So if it does take a little bit more than a minimum, I don't think it's a horrible thing. I think you just want to make sure that he's 100% when he comes back. Joe Ryan, man, what an up and down season for him so far this year. A glute strain, that's not going to be a minimum for sure. So you might have to look for other options there. Again, you drafted him probably as like your pitcher number 2, low end 2, maybe top 3, right? And again, Twins are definitely still in it for sure, but he's just had not the Joe Ryan that we've come to love and just trust. I think he needs a new change of scenery anyway. I think that's a little bit of it as well. And then, like you said, Hunter Green, I think at this point, we can drop Hunter Green. Obviously, it's been disappointing to this point. He's going to have the surgery. We don't even know what his status is going to be for 2027. So it's just been kind of a roller coaster. Maybe that's why, he was a rumored trade potential guy at the deadline. Who knows what the reports said about him and the injury reports. But again, it's just disappointing because there was high hopes for Hunter Green. I know a lot of people stashed him when he got the cleanup surgery in his elbow, and it just never panned out. I think he really only had that one good start. What was that? 7 innings, 12 Ks. Just he looked like he was vintage Hunter Green again, but it's just disappointing. So I think it's safe to say we can drop Hunter Green.
Okay, so let's talk streamers here. I have 3 pretty decent hitting streamers, and some of the names might surprise you. Some of them might not. I do have Tigers first baseman Spencer Torkelson. He's 21% owned. He's got 3 games versus the Guardians at home, 3 games versus the White Sox at home. He's actually looked pretty good recently. He did hit a couple home runs earlier this week and then late last week. So if you're looking for that first base help, this might be the time to get it. Next up, I got Astros outfielder Dalton Varsho. He's 9% owned. He's got 3 games at the Giants, 3 games versus the Mariners at home. I think with him playing every day in that Houston lineup, it's going to be good for him to get those at-bats. I know he wasn't getting them really too much in Toronto. So, again, a nice chance to pick up and just stream him, at least for the week, if you're trying to figure out what to do with your lineup the rest of the way. That's what these guys are here for. And then I wanted to throw some infield help on here because we were talking about the White Sox, and I'm talking about shortstop, second baseman Chase Meidroth. He's only 10% owned. He's got 3 games versus the Reds, 3 games at the Tigers. I think, he looks really good. I mean, he's got some sneaky power in there. He bats right around where Murakami bats, so he does see the pitches. Sometimes they'll bat him in that 2 holes. Sometimes they'll bring him down to like that 6th or 7th, which isn't a bad spot for him. I think he's a really good stream. I can't believe he's only 10% owned. He is shortstop and second base eligible, so that's a pretty fun thing to have on your team. But these are the guys I have this week as far as streamers go, and I'd love to hear what you think about them, Mike.
I think my favorite one on this list is Chase Meidroth. I'm glad you put him on here too, because obviously this past weekend, I think we saw the best baseball game of the season so far with the White Sox versus Red Sox. And Chase Meidroth had his fingerprints all over that game from an offensive standpoint. I think there was a lot of confidence in that game. I think that he gained from that. And I'd rather see him just take that momentum and continue that. And I think we're seeing that right now with him. These lineups with these matchups, loving them. I mean, the Reds are kind of just obviously out of it. I mean, the Tigers, it's not like they have the most electric pitching staff at this point right now. So, again, just love the matchups. They're still competing for that AL Central. It's super competitive in that division, which is great to watch. But I think Chase Meidroth is kind of that guy. He had the best week, actually, offensively from a fantasy perspective for the White Sox last week. So, again, what a great pickup, 10%. He should be more in that 50% realm. I'm not saying he's the best middle infielder in the whole league, but I'm saying he should get his respect for sure. Dalton Varsho, same thing, right? Got moved at the deadline. I think this was kind of a sneaky move. And again, the Giants, the Mariners, we know what those teams are kind of doing lately. Again, we're to the point of the season where a lot of these guys are already picked up. The sleepers are gone. You know, we're trying to find you fill in the holes. So Noah Varsho is filling a hole for like a James Wood type, right? You know, it's not like you're going to have someone that's going to be the same production as James Wood on your bench. Hopefully not, you know, but again, you're just going to have to find substitutes, you know, for week in, week out until those guys are back. Same thing with Spencer Torkelson. I mean, he has the potential to be a very good fantasy player. It's just I feel like these last few years he's kind of been up and down, a little inconsistent. But when he's good, he's very good. He hits home runs. He has the power. Guardians and White Sox at home, very good matchups.
All right. So let's talk pitchers. This is one of my favorite. Some of these guys, and you had said Eric Lauer, and I know he was supposed to be a 2-start. They pushed him back a little bit because they're playing 7 games. But he's only 5% owned. Wednesday, he's versus the Royals, a really bad, one of the worst teams in baseball. He's going to be at home when he plays them. Listen, I know he didn't look great against the Cubs in his last start, but before that, he's been 5-0 before that last start. And honestly, one of the more consistent starters for the Dodgers. I think he bounces back against his really sluggish Royals team. It's a great matchup for him. And then we talked about Angels starting pitcher Urena, 20% owned Thursday versus the Rangers. He's at home. I know I had said that the Rangers do have a good hitting matchup as far as that, but he might be one of the only lights in the tunnel for this Angels team. And I know he didn't look good against Miami in his last start. He only went 2 1/3, but prior to that, he had 3 quality starts in a row, 6 innings every start, gave up 1 run in 2 of them. He went 2-1. He still has a 2.83 ERA on the year, giving you 9 points. Isn't too bad for somebody that's a free agent and only 20% owned. And then last but not least, I have to throw a relief starting pitcher in there just because I'm talking about Cubs Javier Assad. He's only 2.8% owned. This one's a deep sleeper. I had to dig deep on this one. Tuesday at the Nationals. Listen, it's a Nationals lineup that doesn't have James Wood, doesn't have Luis Garcia. I think right now, probably their best hitter, CJ Abrams. Other than that, there really isn't a lot to talk about with that lineup. He pitched great against the Dodgers, only giving up an earned in 5 2/3. I think that momentum continues against this team that, like I said, not only lost James Woods to injury, but a lot of other players to the trade deadline. My only thing is he could be a 2-start, but it's all going to depend on what the Cubs want to do later on in the week because Clay Holmes is back and they do have Gosman. So I don't know what they're going to do later on in the week. But right as of now, he is going to be starting Tuesday. He might start Sunday.
Yeah, very, very deep cut. You know, this is a guy that if you're in a 14-teamer and you're in a daily league and you just need innings and you need more strikeouts, you know, this is a guy that you can go pick up out there. He does play for the Cubs. He doesn't go too deep into games, but still he can give you the production that you need, especially in category leagues as well. I think Urena is probably your best streamer pickup right here for this week. Again, yes, the matchups are good for Texas, but it's not like Texas is crushing the ball anyway at this point. So again, Urena has an opportunity here to kind of come in, maybe have another quality start like you mentioned there, and continue his momentum for kind of a lackluster Angels team. And then Eric Lear's kind of been like your steady, starting pitcher, relief pitcher almost this whole entire year. Especially for the Dodgers, I feel like he's almost been their fail-safe. And like you said, yeah, he did have the clunker his last outing, but up to then, he's been pretty good. So I really can't put a knock on Eric Lear here. I'm surprised he's only 5% owned. That's kind of shocking to me. I thought he'd be a little bit more on, especially being a Dodger starting pitcher. But I'm okay, comfortable starting him against the Royals. Again, a really tough season for them. I'm cool with Eric Lear. I think it'd go Urena, Lear, and then if I needed another guy, then I'd poke some fun at Javier Assad.
I mean, I'm rolling Javier Assad out this week.
Are you really?
I am. I'm rolling him out.
See, you're a man of your word. You're gonna put it on the screen. And you're gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it. We'll see what happens. I mean, he's looked good. So, like I said, the Nationals team to me doesn't, outside of CJ Abrams, it doesn't really scare me. So,
yeah,
I'm gonna roll with him. We'll see what happens. Cubs are rolling. Why not roll with him?
That's fair. You got no more Curtis Men in that lineup. You got no more James Wood in that lineup right now. There isn't not a lot to be scared of. That's fair.
Exactly. So let's give some updates real quick. These are all IL updates of people that will probably draft really, really early in drafts. So it's always good to get an update, especially with playoffs coming. It is a pretty long list, so I'm going to try to do my best. Take a deep breath here. Okay. Mets outfield DH Juan Soto. He has started doing baseball activities. It's going to be a slow ramp for him, but they're still saying late August, early September, which is right when your playoffs start. Red Sox starting pitcher Garrett Crochet. He started throwing from 50 to 60 feet on Tuesday. He does have a shot at rejoining the team before the end of the season, but it doesn't look like he'll be there for your fantasy playoffs. I understand if you want to hold on to him. I get it. I don't care. Just know that there's probably a good chance he's not going to be there. Pirates' O'Neal Cruz began a rehab assignment Friday. He should be activated later this week. So in daily leagues, you can put him in when he starts. In weekly leagues, I'd probably hold off because there is no set date. If they were saying Tuesday, then maybe I'd say throw him in. But they're thinking probably Thursday or Friday. So I would just wait. Dodgers starting pitcher Tyler Glasnow. He's making a rehab start today, Sunday. The team is looking for around 3 innings and 45 pitches. They're hoping for 2 more starts after this before being activated, which puts him in the big league level late August. And, of course, the rich get richer with Blake Snell making his return on the mound Tuesday. I usually am hesitant about putting people in the lineup when they're back from the IL, but I think Blake Snell will be pretty good. I would put him in the lineup. I think he had 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 rehab starts. His ERA was a little over 3. Looked great. A lot of strikeouts. Hopefully he's back. Yankees starting pitcher Carlos Rodon. He made his first rehab start. He threw 48 pitches. He allowed 3 earned, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. He'll probably need 2 more, which puts him on track for late August. And then last but not least, Red Sox newly acquired catcher Adley Rutschman made a rehab start Saturday. He should be activated later on this week as well, but I still wouldn't put him in a weekly lineup. He's going to be eased into that everyday closer role, so probably the first week, maybe 2 weeks, he'll have a day off here and there. I would say, start him at your own leisure. So, if you want to pick somebody up and maybe get those extra 4 at bats or maybe 8 or whatever. But if not, nothing wrong with starting Adley after next week.
No, I'm okay with Adley. He looks great in his rehab already. He had a couple hits. He looked popped up, had a nice throw out at second base. So it looks like he's just about 100% there. He'll probably come back up in the next couple of days or so. I'm going to start him. I'm not going to lie to you, Doug. I'm going to put him out there, even if I do lose a couple at bats. But I do think when he's out there with that Red Sox team, I'm just excited to see what he does with them, especially as hot as they are. I just want another Red Sox bat in my lineup. So I'm going to pull the trigger on it. And then same thing with Blake Snell, too. I do have him in a 14-teamer. I am going to start him this week. I do like the matchup for him. I've been watching his rehab starts. His pitch count is up. The strikeouts are there. I'm not going to be shy about it. And like I said, you mentioned it. You are sometimes hesitant to start these guys right away. But he looks like he's fully stretched out. They really took his time with them what do you have, 5 or 6 different rehab starts. So they really made sure that he was going to be 100% ready to go when he does come back. So I'm just going to plug and play him, see how it goes, cross my fingers, and see if he can get me a couple wins and a quality start coming down the stretch here, coming to the fantasy playoffs. And like you mentioned, Carlos Rendon, he's slowly coming back too. The Yankees desperately need, security in that rotation. They've had Max Fried. Yes, they got Garrett Cole. Yes, they get Cam Schlitter. But man, to have a Carlos Rendon in that back 4-5 spot to go with Will Warren, that's going to be a really nice thing to see. So again, you got to keep a pulse on these guys. And I think in redraft leagues, I think you and I can both agree it is safe to say we can drop Garrett Crochet. And that is a sentence I didn't want to say this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he's going to be drafted next year. I mean, if he comes back, let's say he does make a start at the end of the year and then becomes like a staple in that rotation and the playoff push that they make, is he still going to be a late first round pick?
No. I think that's already out of the realm at this point because you just don't know what you're going to get from him moving forward even to next year. Do you expect him to throw 180 to 200 innings next year as you would expect from an ace? I don't know. He hasn't pitched most of the season. So now you're going to have to kind of rebuild that up. And as we talked about last year too, Doug, when he came with Boston, everything was going to be his max anyway in his first season, which it was. And that's why he was a great Cy Young candidate last year. But now some of that wear and tear, I think, kind of caught up with him a little bit because they really did stretch him out last year. So again, same thing with like Brandon Wu. They really kind of just let the reins loose, and a guy that really hasn't had a lot of experience going deep in the seasons yet. So it's just a great crochet. You're going to have to think, I'm thinking probably third, fourth round. He's going to be that second wave, third wave of pitchers, I think, moving forward, at least into next year's drafts.
That's fair. So probably right around Yamamoto.
Yeah, I think after Yamamoto. I think Yamamoto, I'm more comfortable drafting before him.
That's fair. All right, man. So we had a chance to talk about some favorable pitching matchups, some not so favorable. Same thing with lineups, some favorable lineups, some not so favorable. Went over some IL additions this past week, talked about some streamers for hitters, for pitchers. And like I said, next week I'll tell you how I did with Javier Assad as my guy because I am going to stream him. I drink what I make. So I'm all in on him. And then we give some IL updates for the rest of the year. So these are the weeks in fantasy that count. Hopefully your lineups are set week 19 and you get the win. I mean, these last couple wins could be the difference between you making the playoffs, not making the playoffs, getting the first round seed, not getting it. So they're all very important from here on out. Not to say that they weren't before, but it's just a little more fun now that, there is only about 3 or 4 weeks left. So for Mikey V, I'm Doug. This is Bourbon N Ball. Make sure to catch us live on Friday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're here. We're live. We're taking questions. We're sipping some drinks. Join us. Have some fun. It's Friday night. Why not? Coming to you from FSAN. So give us some hearts. Give us some love. But until then, we will see you Friday. Have a good rest of the week. Good luck, guys.